Welcome to this special edition of Go Vote Omaha, a candidate forum for Legislative District 45 presented by the League of Women Voters of Greater Omaha. I'm Geri Simon, a League member and moderator for the forum. The League of Women Voters never opposes or supports political parties or candidates. We present forums solely for voter education. The format for our forum is as follows. Each candidate will have a 1-minute opening statement, and then we'll have questions prepared by the League of Women Voters. The candidate who answers the question first will have up to 30 seconds of rebuttal time. Each candidate will answer every question and will have up to 90 seconds to do so. Following the questions and answers, we'll go to a 1-minute closing statement by the candidates. Before our forum this evening, the candidates drew lots to determine their initial speaking order, and I'll introduce them to you in that order now. There are 2 candidates running for LD45, the seat in the unicameral, and they are Sue Crawford and Michael Cook. And we'll go directly to our opening statements, beginning with Sue Crawford.
Thank you, Geri, and thank you, League of Women Voters, for this opportunity to reach out to our voters and for all of the work that you do to educate and engage our voters. And I thank you, Michael Cook, for your participation tonight as well. I'm grateful to Bellevue and Sarpy County voters for the opportunity to serve as your state senator for the past 4 years. My husband and I have enjoyed our opportunity to live in Bellevue and to serve the Bellevue community for 20 years. And it's been an honor to be able to bring those experiences and the expertise that I've gained through my work at Creighton University as a policy professor to work for you at the unicameral. We've worked hard to pass practical bills to improve opportunities and get results for Bellevue over the past 4 years. And with your support, I hope to continue to work hard for you and for families across Nebraska.
Thank you. Michael Cook.
Geri, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for having me here tonight in this forum with our Senator Sue Crawford from LD45. I'm Michael Cook, retired U.S. Air Force Colonel, a veteran of Vietnam, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, as well as the Cold War. I hope to make Nebraska a better place to work, live, and retire should I be elected to the senator role for LD45. My wife and I were married here. We spent a total of almost 33 years in the Offutt-Bellevue community. I think I can bring some military experience, background, and administrative work in the role as your state senator in Legislative District 45.
Thank you. Now we'll go to our first question. How will you build coalitions and work with other senators in the unicameral? Michael Cook.
I think that's very important. I would reach out and visit with every senator in the unicameral because I personally feel that there may be a little bit of a divide between the Lincoln, Omaha urban area and the rest of western Nebraska, and I think we need to work well together to make all of Nebraska a great place to live, work, and retire.
Thank you. Sue Crawford.
Thank you. Well, one of the things that's been most surprising to me is how strong the relationships are in the unicameral. And so I've had an opportunity in being in the unicameral in the last 4 years to build strong coalitions across party lines and across rural and urban divides. One of the key bills that I introduced was to increase access to nurse practitioners, and that was a bill that had a priority from a rural senator. And I remember when I first came in, this former Speaker Flood gave a presentation and talked about how important those relationships were. And really, it takes the time to invest that time in the relationship building. And what I found is that I've been able to build strong relationships with members of the unicameral from both parties and from rural and urban areas. And we work together and we pass practical changes, common sense changes to get things done for the state. And so that's really been a joy of my job, is being able to work with those senators and hear their backgrounds. One of the great things about the unicameral is that people come from all kinds of backgrounds, and we all bring our experiences together, and together building those coalitions and working together to find the best solutions is part of what helps us to come up with unique solutions and innovative solutions to make our state better.
Thank you. And Mr. Cook, if you have any rebuttal?
Well, I agree with Senator Crawford and everything she said there, but I think sometimes being centric to the eastern part of the state, there are certain things that happen to the demise, not the demise, that does not benefit our agricultural region. And one of those is this, I think, inordinate amount of sales tax that we placed on gasoline.
Okay, thank you. Our next question. Do you support advancing a proposal for charter schools in Nebraska? And do you support use of school vouchers or scholarships that are really the same thing as vouchers? And we'll begin with Sue Crawford.
Thank you. I think our state has a fundamental responsibility to have a strong public school system. And so there are advantages that people often associate with charter schools, such as flexibility and innovation. But I believe that our public schools are able to have those kinds of benefits as well, if given the opportunity, if given the resources. So my emphasis as a state senator will be to continue to ensure we have very strong public schools and ensure that we're investing in those public schools and doing whatever we can do at the state level to incentivize and allow the flexibility that allows for innovation and parent choice within that public school system, while again also supporting and allowing partnerships with private schools and homeschool parents that makes for a rich choice for our parents. But fundamentally, the public resources need to be focused on ensuring that we have a very strong public school system, and it's very important to make sure that we protect that. We can have public school choice, and we do have public school choice, but the opportunities to provide that choice need to be provided in the context of ensuring a very solid core public school system.
Thank you. Michael Cook.
With respect to that very good question, I question the idea of competitiveness in public education. We all want our children to have the best available education that we can possibly provide them. By being competitive, the charter schools, the private schools sometimes offer better education than our public schools. So why not allow some credit to those schools, because education is not a state-driven function, it's not a federal-driven function. It should be driven by the parents and what they want best for their children.
Thank you. And Sue Crawford, do you have any rebuttal?
Sure. Our fundamental obligation as a state is to ensure we have a sound public school system. And it's important to allow opportunities for parents to make other choices. And it's important, and again, we allow unique partnerships with public schools and our homeschool parents and private schools that allow rich experiences for our students. But fundamentally, our core obligation needs to be to ensuring we have a solid public school system.
Thank you. Here's our next question. What is your position on medical cannabis or marijuana use in Nebraska? And will you support a bill to make it legal in the next session of the unicameral? Michael Cook.
That was another good question, Jerry. Thank you. Pardon me. The way I feel about medicinal cannabis oil is what it should be called that. It shouldn't be called medicinal marijuana. Right now, under federal law, marijuana is a Class 1 drug. And there's been no opportunity or no reach out by the Federal Drug Administration to do any research on that. And I feel that if people are really serious about this, they ought to be writing their congressmen and their senators to get that removed off the Class 1 system. And let's do adequate research to find out what it actually does for the people that they say will help, what its side effects are, and of course what the cost is going to be. Right now, I cannot support medicinal cannabis oil because right now it is part of the marijuana family and is illegal under federal law.
Thank you. Sue Crawford.
Thank you, Jerry. We do have many people in the state who are suffering because we have had bad federal policy. And as Michael noted, the cannabis is scheduled as a Schedule I drug at the federal level, And that has restricted research and restricted our ability to treat the plant as a medical plant and have the appropriate oversight and research into possible uses of cannabis for medical purposes. And really, what needs to happen is there needs to be federal rescheduling to open the research and open the possibility to have a market and research on cannabis. And while it remains illegal federally, then at the state level, we're in a quandary of how to best move forward. What can we do that's constitutional and legal moving forward? How do we best help our families who are suffering in our state? And on that front, the effort that I have put forward has been to provide access to a study of cannabis oil through a study through UNMC. And that we were able to get that passed in a way that allows the parents to comply with federal law, allows the physicians to be involved, allows the university to be involved, provides access. It provides access for those patients and allows us to move forward to provide help to as many patients as we can, but staying within that legal framework.
Thank you. Any rebuttal, Michael Cook?
First of all, I'd like to compliment Senator Crawford on what she's done in this area. But again, it's my personal opinion that as long as it's a Schedule I drug, it is illegal, that the federal government ought to take the first steps in that, even though I disagree with federal government oversight of a lot of things in their life. But we need to bring it out of that Schedule I classification so we can do what UNMC is so diligently trying to do for Ms. Crawford and the state of Nebraska.
Thank you. Here's our next question. What should be done about the state budget shortfall? If your position is that you don't want to raise taxes or you want to reduce taxes further, tell us exactly which services you would cut to balance the budget, and be very specific. We'll start with Sue Crawford.
All right, thank you. Well, one of the most striking bar charts that I saw when we were looking at budget analysis is a bar chart that compared our state spending to what's called tax expenditures. And that is money that doesn't come into our revenue stream because it's offered as tax credits or tax exemptions. And the bar for tax expenditures is much higher than the bar for spending. And so a key part of balancing our budget and reducing taxes moving forward is tackling those tax expenditures. And we've started an effort to really scrutinize the tax benefits that are offered through the Advantage Act, asking if those are important investments for our state. But the tax expenditure side has got to be a key part of this equation. And that is a key part of the discussions that we've been having with people who will be in leadership and are on the revenue committee moving forward, is tackling and having a lot of attention and energy to tackle those tax expenditures, which require much more revenue than our current spending.
Thank you. Michael Cook.
Well, first of all, let me say that tax money in the coffers of the state is your money. It's not the legislature's money. It's the taxpayers' money. Governor Ricketts has identified the shortfall. He's mentioned belt tightening. If you take a look at our state budget, now $95 million is not a lot of money. And there should be no way that each and every agency that spends your money cannot reduce their budget by an equal amount to make up for that $95 million shortfall. Why? Because that's your money. If I'm in the legislature, that's not my money. We use it for the betterment of the state, but we have to get people together and do a smart approach at balancing the budget, of making sure that we build the budget based upon the revenue that we project to come in, and not to build the budget and try to raise the revenue to meet the budget.
Thank you. Any rebuttal, Sue Crawford?
Thank you. I think it is critical, and I appreciate that the governor has gotten the agencies involved in proposing the kinds of belt tightenings that they can have. A key part of the budget process for us in the legislature is looking at the recommendations of the agencies, and they offer suggestions and ideas of how to best cut some spending. And that's an important key part in looking at what those priorities are. We have a great appropriations committee that also helps us to tackle that question.
Thank you. Here's our next question. What is appropriate funding for community-based behavioral services? And we'll start with Michael Cook.
That's a good question. That's a tough question. But we really need to look over those things. And again, just like on the previous question, we have to bring in the right people to look at what we're doing, and is it the appropriate thing to do, and do we have the money to do it? But we should, by all means, fund these services, not at the cost of some other service, or not at the risk of having to raise taxes to provide that service to the citizens of Nebraska.
Thank you. Sue Crawford.
Thank you. Well, any particular service is a little difficult to answer out of the context of all the other services. One of our real challenges as state legislators is to balance all of these different commitments. I think that one of the arguments for ensuring strong investment in our community-based health centers is that we need to increase our investment in preventive care. And one of the arguments for that is that there's such a strong return on investment. And as we look at how to spend money, a key question that we ask if we're spending taxpayer dollars is, what's the return on that investment? And community-based health centers provide an opportunity to reach out to people, to try to help them improve their health, make better decisions. So we try to do that to then reduce the costs that we may have to the state down the road. And so in terms of adequate, we always are doing our best with the resources we have at hand. And so it's important to invest what we can in those community-based health centers with the resources that we can, recognizing that it has an important return on investment in terms of reducing our costs in other areas of the state when people have health that deteriorates or are engaged in substance abuse practices that end up costing our criminal justice system.
Thank you. Any rebuttal, Michael Cook?
You know, I really agree with Sue on what she said. But I'll also say that I, as a legislator, am not knowledgeable or have the expertise to make such decisions as that. So we have to get the right people in there by working together inside the legislature, getting the right people so that we do not waste money on bad programs.
Thank you. Here's our next question. What do you propose about Medicaid expansion? Would it help offset the budget shortfall? And how do we provide health care for all Nebraskans? And we'll start with Sue Crawford.
Thank you. As a member of the Health and Human Services Committee, I've had a front row seat to this debate about expansion over the past 4 years. And there are a couple of key points that I've seen over and over again. And the first is that while expansion clearly matters for those 50 to 70,000 Nebraskans who don't have health coverage now, who fall in the coverage gap and desperately need access to affordable health care, it also is important and is an important benefit to all of the rest of us, because providing that coverage then reduces our uncompensated care, it reduces medical bankruptcies, and so it strengthens our entire health system because we have more paying customers to have a stronger network of providers. It also has important economic benefits as well. So the second thing is that time and time again, we've had economic analysis that has shown that we get our money back from the investment that we make in expansion. In short, we are, as a state, our citizens, we are paying federal taxes and fees to pay for this. We have an opportunity to bring billions of dollars of federal investment back into our state. And that not only allows us to save money in other ways that the state is currently spending money, but all of that billions of dollars of investment and the thousands of jobs then will create incomes and sales that allow us to increase our tax revenues.
Thank you. Michael Cook.
I am opposed to Medicare expansion because that's exactly what it is. I defy anybody in the state of Nebraska that really thinks our federal government will keep their promise with their offset by holding that money hostage that is your money, not my money. And I have the experience to tell you exactly what the federal government can do. When I came on active duty, I was assured of free health care after I retired. Right now, I have TRICARE for life, and I'm paying an ungodly amount of money into that system that was promised to me when I came on the Air Force. The other thing is, every year you hear them talking about changing the U.S. retirement system for federal and military employees. That's why one of the reasons I'm opposed to expansion. I agree with Senator Crawford about the benefits, but the thing about it, I am not sure the federal government will uphold their end of this bargain, and they're holding your money as hostage.
Thank you. Any rebuttal, Sue Crawford?
Sure. I recognize the concern people have about what may happen in the future, but right now we have the opportunity to leverage billions of dollars of federal investment and thousands of dollars of jobs at a time when our state is facing some financial shortfalls, and we have people who are desperately in need of health care. So I think it's important for us to move forward and accept the expansion and accept the federal investment now while it exists. We then can, if the federal investment backs off, then we'll have to make those adjustments, but not give up this opportunity.
Thank you. Here's our final question. What can Nebraska do to better support our schools without raising property taxes? And what's the state's obligation for school funding? We'll start with Michael Cook.
I'm glad you asked me that question. I can't speak for the entire state, but we need to get the federal government out of education our kids. That is a local matter, and we need to ensure that they have the best education possible. One of the things that really surprises me, being from a school system back in West Virginia, we do not have a vocational technical program for our children to do something besides go to college. All of our young men and women don't want to go to college. They want to get out, they want to work, so why aren't we training them? And we're putting way too much emphasis on college educations. The other thing that I see on some of the briefings I've been to, we don't have a real national standard. If we say our kids in Bellevue are getting 75 percentile of a national average, not of the 100% mark. So 75 of 70 is below 50%. That tells me we are failing our children with respect to education. We can do a better job, and the state can use money to do that well.
Thank you. Sue Crawford.
Thank you. One of the core obligations of the state in partnership with local school districts is to ensure we have adequate resources and adequate policies to have a high quality education. And what we've seen in Nebraska is that relationship has gotten out of kilter. And so we are more reliant on property taxes than almost any other state for our funding. And so as we move forward, even though we may have financial challenges, it's going to be critical for us to rebalance that relationship and become less reliant on property taxes and provide additional supports to help provide the adequate resources that are needed for our schools. Another key role that the state plays is an important role in providing transparency. And one example that I've just talked to some folks with Accelerate Nebraska about is providing transparency so that parents can see school reports, and so that schools can have access to information about how well the schools are doing, and making sure that their students are college ready. And so we make sure that information that's available is out there, and getting the information out there is an important part of helping to push the schools to do better and helping the parents to make good choices. And that's one role that the state plays. The state can also play a key role in encouraging innovation and providing other supports that are important parts of making sure we have those quality resources in our schools.
Thank you. Any rebuttal, Michael Cook?
Believe it or not, I agree with Sue.
Okay,
on
we're going
what
to go.
she said.
We're going to go right.
However, I
excuse me.
really believe in guaranteeing that our children are ready for college is very key. I agree with Senator Crawford on it. But the thing about it, are we guaranteeing, for the use of these property taxes for the education of our children, are we guaranteeing them a spot in this country to be productive citizens other than going to college? There's too many college graduates out there that do not have jobs. You look in the want ads, there's a lot of jobs for the blue-collar workers that we could train in a vocational tech school environment.
Thank you. Now we'll go to closing statements, beginning with Sue Crawford.
Thank you. It's been an honor to serve in our nonpartisan unicameral system. We have a very unique and proud system in the state of Nebraska. When I go to conferences, talk to people who are working in other states, they're very envious of how we're able to do our job and how we're able to work in a nonpartisan way in Nebraska. And I'm committed to maintaining that tradition. I think it's an important part of our state, and it's an important reason why we have strong state policies in the state. And I have supporters of both parties that have supported me. I've worked hard with senators and built coalitions with senators of both parties. It's also the case that I've been selected by my peers as a committee chair, again with senators of both parties, and I look forward to continuing to work with citizens of Bellevue and also with senators of both parties to make sure we move forward with pragmatic, common sense solutions.
Thank you. Michael Cook.
Thank you once again for having me here. If elected, I will serve all the people of District 45, regardless of what party or leanings you have. I will congratulate Senator Crawford for the wonderful work she's done for our district. We have varying disagreements. Hopefully they're friendly disagreements that we agree to disagree. I want to bring a more conservative approach for LD45, the state legislature, and all the people of the great state of Nebraska. And with the people's help out there, hopefully, I will be the new senator of Legislative District 45.